In a land of green fields and stone walls, where myths walk alongside memory, there is a game that isn't just played, it is lived. A game born of turf and tribe, shaped by famine and freedom, rooted in the soil of a people who would not be broken. Gaelic football is not just a sport, it's a defiance. It is parish pride made flesh, where neighbours become warriors and counties become kingdoms. Where the roar of a crowd in Croke Park isn't just noise, it's history echoing through the generations. It's the thunder of boots on grass, the flight of a ball against the great Atlantic sky, the colours of a county held high like a banner of identity. It is Ireland, raw, raucous, unrepentant, played out in 60 plus minutes of blood and belief. It survived when it wasn't supposed to. It flourished when they tried to kill it. It belongs to no corporation, no king, no outsider. And now, to do justice to this proud and sacred tradition, it's two English lads, just doing our best. Please don't hate us. This is the Sporting Almanac podcast. Good evening, Ben.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Very much enjoying, as I say every week, all the sport that is on, including the progression of the Lionesses at the Euros.
Not the best penalty shootout, but, sweet revenge for 1984.
But that's not the football we're here to talk about.
No, it isn't.
That is not the football that we're here to talk about. What are we here to talk about?
Well, we're here to talk specifically about the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, which is on Sunday, but also just the sport of Gaelic football in general and the GAA, the organisation that organises it all. And it is rather fascinating, and I wasn't expecting... Obviously, as I've said many times before, this is a podcast that sports I like, I get to be a bit of a nerd on, and we get to have a natter about, and it's great. Sports I don't know that well, I get to learn a lot about and build up my knowledge on, and then there's obviously other things I can go deeper in, but this is a sport that honestly knew nothing about. I knew the basic rules, I've seen it on TV a few times, but as Englishmen, we are not afraid to admit this is not a sport that is commonly watched in England. I love this sport. I've spent because I've come straight out of boxing mode straight into this. I've not done a whole load of research, but what I've seen so far, love this sport. And I think we should go to Ireland and watch it when the new season starts next year.
Yes, we were just discussing that actually separately, weren't we? That this is a sport that neither of us have ever seen live, and is one that we should probably tick off because it's not far away.
Very accessible.
Yeah, very accessible. Not far away. Cheap flights. Welcoming nation.
Affordable tickets. Yeah, it's definitely one that we should try and get involved in. I'm going to concede from the get go here. I know sweet FA about Gaelic football. I know it's a sport. I know it's played in Ireland. I know roughly what goes on. Yeah.
But I learn an awful lot just doing some, background reading into this and just getting my head around the concept of the competition and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to talking to it. It's obviously as well one of these sports that's like synonymous with Irish culture and the history of Ireland and nationalism in Ireland.
Yeah.
And so, it's fascinating just through historical storytelling from a historical storytelling perspective as well. So I'm sure we're going to dip into a couple of those little rabbit holes. But to the people of Ireland, if any of you listen, just forgive us if our historical knowledge is not on point. We don't have doctorates in Irish history, but we are trying to learn.
Yeah, and as I'll say right at the beginning, and I'll probably mention a couple of times throughout, we don't get taught any of this for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
For very, very obvious reasons. Because it doesn't necessarily reflect well upon the British state.
No. So where do we begin on that cheery note?
Where do we begin? I mean, let's assume, as that is sort of the point of this podcast to a certain extent, let's assume that we're speaking to people like us who
No, nothing.
right now, don't know a huge amount about the sport. So
The sport itself, then? The rules?
yeah, in terms of the basics, it's a 15-a-side sport, so that's the same as rugby union.
Yep.
Each team has 1 goalkeeper, 6 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 6 forwards on it.
Yeah. Can I elaborate on that?
Oh, do, please.
2 cornerbacks, a fullback, 2 wing-backs, a centre-back, 2 wing forwards, a centre-forward, 2 corner forwards, and a full forward, and 2 midfielders.
Nice.
And if you're going to ask me what their roles are, other than the keeper, I don't have a clue.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of things that do convert quite nicely over to association football. The goalkeeping is almost exactly the same, other than sort of the when you can play the ball, when you can catch the ball, how you distribute the ball, that kind of thing. A few rules about limiting the goalkeeper's involvement in play, stuff like that. But obviously, generally speaking, it's your job to keep the ball out of the net. But the rest of the game, obviously, does vary greatly. So the objective is to score, obviously, like all sports.
Mm-hmm.
And you score either by kicking the ball over the crossbar, where there is rugby-style posts, or kicking the ball into the net, where there is football-style goals. So imagine, if you will, if you've never seen it before, sticking a couple of rugby posts on top of a football goal, and that is what we're playing with today.
And there are 2 ways to score by kicking the ball through the uprights, isn't there? You get 1 point for just kicking it through,
Yes.
but you get 2 points if you kick it through the post from 40 metres or further
Yeah.
out. D-shaped arc on the pitch, indicating that scoring line.
And that is a brand new rule for 2025. For years and years and years in this sport, you could either score 3 points for scoring a goal or 1 point for scoring a point. Now you've got these 2 points as well, which is cool. I like that.
And it's odd, though, because when it comes up on screen, it's not actually, it doesn't tell you an overall score, so they don't aggregate the score. Well, they might actually on TV in Ireland, I don't know, but when you're reading scores, it tells you the number of goals scored and the number of points scored. It doesn't tell you the aggregated score.
Yeah, you have to do some quick maths in your head to work it out, although goals have come at a similar rate to association football, so it's not the hardest maths in the world. Everyone should know their 3 times table.
Yeah. Points are aggregated. You don't have to work out when 2 and 1 points were scored.
Yeah, and there's no bonus for scoring more goals than the other team. If one team scores 14 points and you score 1 goal and 11 points, it's a 14-all draw,
Yes.
essentially, at the end of the day.
Yeah, because it is harder to score the football goal, so to speak,
Indeed.
than it is to kick the ball through the posts. That's the point, isn't it? But yeah, the scoring system is peculiar, but fun.
Yeah, it is. And in terms of the nuanced rules, so the ball can be carried for up to 4 steps, after which it must be bounced or soloed. So solo is when you drop it onto your foot and kick it back into your hands.
Yeah.
A bounce is like basketball. You can't bounce 2 times in a row. So you have to go bounce, solo, or you can solo as much as you want.
Yes, you can't travel like you can in basketball. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You can bounce the ball once with a couple of steps, but then you have to solo it. Basically play keepy-uppy with yourself.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. So to move the ball from player to player, you can kick it or hand pass it, or you can solo the ball to move it upfield, as in you can run with it. So hand passing is, if anyone's seen Australian rules football, it's slightly similar to that, where you can basically drop it onto your hand and you have to hit it to someone else. I think the only difference is I think you can use an open hand in Gaelic rules, but you have to use a closed fist in Australian rules. I think that's the only difference.
I think that's right. The way I rationaled it in my head was you can pass the ball like you would in volleyball or in Aussie rules.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can either punch it or slap it to someone effectively.
So not like in netball or basketball. You can't do a basketball style pass.
Yeah.
So tackling is limited. It's far less physical, or the tackling rules are far stricter than they are in Australian rules or rugby, for example. You can tackle using a hand to dispossess or block, but not by striking or making overly aggressive contact, essentially.
Yeah, you're basically allowed to shoulder barge and slap the ball out of someone's hand, but you can't do anything else, I think.
Yeah. So it's a physical game, but not the wrestling that you see in Aussie rules.
Yeah, and no rugby-like tackling, no football-like tackling. So you can't slide tackle people or trip anyone or pull anyone's shirt or anything like that. And not as savage as maybe Aussie rules gets. So hopefully encouraging more skill, more attacking.
Indeed. So games are 70 minutes long, which is 2 halves of 35 minutes. It's slightly shorter at club level. I think it's half an hour each way at club level. Obviously, Obviously shorter at youth level as well. The pitch is rectangular, slightly larger than a soccer pitch, with A-shaped goals, as I said, at each end, like rugby, but with a net. And there's free kicks, penalties, sideline balls to restart play after fouls, similar to football in ways.
Yeah, it's weird, actually. It's like a hybrid between football and rugby, really, in like the way it's sort of restarted and the way it's played and the way like the pitch is set up and things like that. And it's got a mark system a bit like rugby as well, hasn't it? Which is why I think, and this might be the first time I speak out of turn, but won't be the last on this episode. I think it's this sport as to why the Irish rugby team are so damn good at like catching high balls.
Certainly nowadays, yeah, although historically that wouldn't have made a difference for reasons that we will come to. Well, it might have done, actually, to be fair, come to think of it. I guess it's a question of which you play first, but
it's definitely a sport that's been like, if you think of a combination between rugby and association football, soccer as you called it earlier, which is, disgraceful, then you won't be going far wrong.
Yeah, it's sort of, I see between Gaelic football and Aussie rules, I see it as like a stepping stone almost. It's like association football, then Gaelic football, then Aussie rules football, then rugby football as like the stepping stones almost in terms of physicality and the sort of limitations on what you can and can't do with the ball.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, I thought so. That's why I just said it.
Did you notice when you were looking up the rules that there are shitloads of officials?
Yes, I did notice. I noticed there was an umpire as well as linesman and the referee. I'm sure you can fill me in on the exact number.
Yeah, referee, 2 linesmen, presumably one on either side, a 4th official, which is, effectively same as in football, deals with substance and all that stuff, and then 4 umpires, 2 at each goal, so in my head, you've got essentially the 4 umpires behind each goal playing the role that linesmen would play in rugby.
Right, yeah.
They're there to assess whether the ball goes through the posts, although I think they now have Hawkeye at some of them for aiding with that. And the referee, so then it gets a bit confusing, but basically the referee is king. He has the final decision on anything. I think the linesmen are allowed to make decisions as well, but if they don't make the same decision, the referee's decision stands. So he's sort of like the veto.
Fair enough.
And then the 4th official and the 4 umpires, they're not allowed to officiate on the game other than their specified role, except they can bring violent conduct to the attention of the referee.
Yes, which I think I will mention an occasion that happened during one of my stories today.
Oh, nice. But yeah, they have yellow and red cards and sin bins, which are black cards.
Yes, black cards.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like that as a colour contrast.
Yellow and red meaning the same in every other sport, really. Caution, sent off. The only thing I couldn't quite get my head around is I think if you get 2 sin bins, you effectively get sent off, but can be subbed after the period through which your sin bin is elapsed.
Oh, that sounds similar to the sin bin trials that we're doing in football.
Yeah.
So you get sin bin for 10 minutes, I think, and then at the end of it, you can then get substituted. But if you've had a second sin bin, you get a 10-minute sin bin with 10 players on the pitch in football terms, association football terms, but then you can bring a substitute on at the end of the 10 minutes. So it sounds similar.
Yeah, so you basically end up with 20 minutes in bin, but you're not down to 14 men in Gaelic football.
Yeah.
I don't think. You can then go back up to 15. But the player who received the second sin bin is off.
So I think black cards are generally given for like cynical fouls, essentially, more than anything, which I like. I like that, and I like that sort of, if they're going to bring sin bins into football, which I'm not against the idea of, in terms of developing the game and bring it into the modern times, then cynical fouls are certainly a good place to start, as well as dissent. So if you're talking about a breakaway situation and someone steps in and fouls, classic Barcelona style, then yeah, don't mind that.
The British learning something from the Irish? I don't think so, mate.
That would be a rare occasion of the powers that be in Britain actually doing so, yeah.
That was a pot shot at our own. You'd have to persuade more than just the British now to get a rule change that actually meant something useful in football. But Gaelic football is a pioneer in that sense, and it's a very cool rule. Any more rules you want to float? I've got 2 other, I guess, they're not really rules of the game, but they are rules of the sport.
Yeah, go for it.
Strictly amateur, which is awesome.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like everyone is just from their counties, from their communities. You all play for your local clubs, best of the best of the best. eventually filter through into the county sides. Everyone plays each other. That's coaches, support staff, players. Everyone is amateur. No one's allowed to be paid. That's just the way it is.
The clubs are run entirely by volunteers, which is obviously something very close to my heart, grassroots football. I appreciate the effort and work that goes into that. It's a great thing. I mean, it's almost a last bastion with rugby becoming professional 30-odd years ago. It's all like that last bastion of amateurism in, well, this part of Europe anyway.
Yeah, and it means anyone can literally play, and anyone can end up representing their county. I'm sure it's a great honour to do so. I don't think it's that easy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Particularly in some of the larger provinces where there are a large number of the playing public. But yeah, I guess the other thing I was going to say is it's an all-male sport. So there is a women's version of Gaelic football, but it's not. It's slightly different.
It's not under the. Yeah, it's slightly different, and it's not under the GAA as well.
Yeah,
it is coming under the GAA. They hope by 2027 they'll have integrated both the women's Gaelic football and also the women's version of hurling, which again is slightly different, called camogie.
Yeah, I guess that isn't that surprising. Ireland is a Catholic state.
Yeah,
very traditionalist, historically at least. Therefore, I imagine by extension, and again, forgive me, Irish people, if I'm casting aspersions on your history, but I imagine a relatively male-dominated society, and similar attitudes to the ones that we've discussed about sports more generally permeate Gaelic football as much as they have anything else, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when the GAA was founded, there was simply no consideration made to women whatsoever, whether that was because they were overlooked or whether it was just that's not the done thing at the time. It was just whether it never occurred to them or whether they thought about it and then deliberately left them out. I don't know, but yeah, right from the beginning.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all I had, mate, on the rules. I think that's about as accessible as I can make it. I mean, it's a very cool sport, but there's a lot going on, especially if you're not familiar with it. But then, we are a country, as in the English, that play cricket. So who are we to poke fun at the complexity or the nuances of another nation's national sport?
You've actually just given me a pang of fear that we're going to have to explain the sport of cricket in this podcast in the near future.
Yeah, we will.
Because when you haven't grown up with it, it's like trying to explain how to speak English as a second language. Like, English is a bonkers language. We know it because we've spoken it since kids. I think that's going to be similar with cricket. How on earth do you explain cricket to someone who's never played it before?
Well, you start by trying to explain Gaelic football, learning the core skill set, and then reapplying it to another sport.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we've given it our best go. Hopefully that's at least given people an idea of what it's all about. It's fun.
I'll take us into the origins a bit, I think, now then.
Yeah, the history, of course.
Yeah. Just quickly, there's not really a huge amount to it. I mean, there is a lot to it. There's a huge amount to the history, but in terms of the original founding, so the Gaelic Athletic Association, which is the GAA, it was founded on the 1st of November 1884 in Hayes Hotel, Thurles, County Tipperary, by a group of Irish cultural nationalists led by Michael Cusack and Maurice Davin. It was founded amid a sort of wider Gaelic revival that was happening at the time, which was resisting the anglicisation of Irish life and to rekindle native traditions like language, music, and sport. So their intention was to codify and promote traditional Irish games, obviously. Things like hurling and Gaelic football primarily, which had been in decline due to the growing dominance of British sports like rugby, soccer, and cricket. And in doing so, to give Irish people a structured, community-rooted alternative, reflective of their own identity, which I think they've bloody well nailed, frankly, given how popular this is and how deeply rooted it is to being Irish.
Yeah, it's always had heavily nationalist links. I think at one point, and I don't know the period, you might know the period, mate, as I say this, but at some point it was effectively you could only speak Irish if you were playing it, or Gaelic.
I haven't got that in my notes, but it wouldn't surprise me given. So now's probably a good time to talk about a few of the rules they've had historically, such as Rule 21.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rule 21 in 1897, and this lasted till 2001, so after a few years after the Good Friday Agreement, that banned members of the British Armed Forces and Police, so the Royal Irish Constabulary, later the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and the British Army, from joining in or playing the any GAA games. Basically, reflecting obviously the association's nationalist identity. That was repealed sort of, after the peace process in 2001. And then there's Rule 27, which was known as the ban. And this is very, very draconian for any sport. Probably the most draconian rule I've ever heard in any sport. I know about rugby union, their bans on professionalism were very strict. You obviously play one game of rugby league, they won't let you back into rugby union. But this, Rule 27, 1905 to 1971, this was, the ban forbade GAA members from playing or even attending so-called foreign games like soccer, rugby, hockey and cricket. It was strictly enforced and very culturally symbolic until its repeal in 1971. What that meant was if you were a kid and you decided, I'm not sure about rugby or Gaelic football, as an example, and you want to try both, the second you try rugby, you can't go back and play Gaelic football. It was that strict in many circumstances. I'm sure it always wasn't, but it was that strictly enforced. Or if you were a GAA official who was caught watching a rugby match, you lost your job and you couldn't go to any more Gaelic football matches at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It's incredibly strict.
That, though, is symptomatic of the time, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean,
the purpose for which the GAA was set up, the purpose for which Gaelic football and hurling were established as sports of the Irish communities in British ruled Ireland as it was, and then everything that happened in Ireland and the history of Ireland and then the Troubles, etc., etc. I guess you can't look at it without looking at it through that lens. It would be
very much so.
You don't look at it in a vacuum. Like, the rule existed because of the time that the sport was created and existed in.
Indeed, that was what I mentioned at the beginning about the idea of Irish players being so good under the high ball, but they couldn't have gone between the two sports. But having thought about it, they could have played Gaelic football as a child and then played rugby, knowing they wouldn't go back again. In theory, I don't know how common that was. I guess it would be difficult to do so without making a very, very large decision at a very young age. But no, yeah. It is notable. There was also what was previously known as Rule 42. This is still in effect. It has a different name now. I think it's Rule 44 or something like that now of the new regulations. This was started in 1905 and it was amended slightly in 2005 for reasons that you'll be aware of. It's prohibited the use of GAA grounds for non-Gaelic games, especially rugby and soccer, and it was relaxed temporarily in the 2000s to allow Croke Park to be used to host Irish national rugby and soccer matches while Lansdowne Road was being rebuilt.
Yes.
Which was a big deal.
It's a very big deal.
Having Croke Park hosting non-GAA games.
Because the English rugby team went over and played there. English rugby team went over to play Ireland in the Six Nations at Croke Park, and you'll probably want to tell the story of it, Jack.
Yeah. There's a reason this was a massive deal, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, mate. Yeah, you tell it. Tell it now, yeah, it makes sense.
I can tell the story now, yeah. So in terms of point where, because obviously on this podcast we like points where history and sport collide, and it did so in the most horrible circumstances in Dublin in 1920. So Bloody Sunday is a phrase used for many different days, and many of them are associated with Ireland. The first one was 1887, when police and army attacked Irish protesters. There was one in 1913 when strikers were attacked by the police in Dublin. 3 people got beaten to death. And the most famous one before 1920 was July 1914, where a crowd of civilians were fired upon on Bachelor's Walk in Dublin by a column of troops from the King's Own Scottish Borderers, killing 4 and injuring many others, including a boy called Luke Kelly, then a child who barely survived a bullet in the lung. But he did survive, and he later fathered a folk musician also called Luke Kelly, who was a founding member of the Dubliners. So just a shout out to any music fans out there. It's a good bit of history, that. The most famous Bloody Sunday,
one in 72,
is the 30th of January 1972, where soldiers from the 1st Paratroop Regiment shot 14 people dead in the bogslide in Derry, actions which were deemed unjustified and unjustifiable after the Savile inquiry concluded in 2010. I don't think we need to go into that much more, but yeah, not the proudest day.
Everybody knows about Bloody Sunday. Yeah, I mean, if they don't, then they just Google it, for Christ's sake. It's about time you learn about it.
But anyway, 1920. So this, another Bloody Sunday, another very famous one, and one where, as I said, sport and history collided. So just for some context, at the time, The IRA were in a war with the British Army, the Irish Police, the Black and Tans and the Auxiliaries, more on them later, known as the Irish War of Independence. Tensions were incredibly high in Ireland, as you can imagine. So a man named Michael Collins, who will be known by every Irish person listening to this, but probably not known by many British people because, as I mentioned, we just don't teach this in school at all. Michael Collins was the director of intelligence for the IRA at the time, running a network of spies in addition to a group known as the Squad, who carried out assassinations on Collins' orders. The British had their own spies in Dublin at the time, many of whom worked within the police force in G Division. Many of them have been identified by Collins when a sympathiser had let him into a police headquarters in Dublin in April 1919, where he had access to files, and he found out a lot of names there, which led to numerous assassinations by the Squad on G Division members, which undermined the Crown's intelligence network severely, as you can imagine. In response, a new group was set up with the intention of gathering intelligence to use for assassinations to undermine the IRA, who were known as D Branch, or informally and more famously as the Cairo Gang. So, Collins and the Squad turned their attention to gathering intelligence on this new threat, which they did so with surveillance and assistance from sympathisers, as always, including locals who noted strange behaviour like being outside during military curfews, which implied they had special permissions. Enough intelligence was gathered for a series of strikes, which was simultaneously planned for 9 a.m. on Sunday, November the 21st, 1920. To Collins, it was kill or be killed. So, the morning of Sunday the 21st of November. Hand-picked members of the Squad struck at 9 a.m. in multiple homes and lodgings where intelligence agents were living. Their plan was to hit them while they were still in their beds, relaxing on a Sunday morning. They launched coordinated assassinations across Dublin in a bold and high-risk operation. At 28 Pembroke Street, 6 British officers were shot, 2 were killed, 1 was mortally wounded, others were injured. At 38 Upper Mount Street, 2 British intelligence officers were successfully killed. At 22 Lower Mount Street, 1 officer was killed, 1 escaped and another barricaded himself in. The IRA were interrupted by passing auxiliaries, leading to a shootout. IRA volunteer Frank Teeling was shot and captured during that escape, the only gunman arrested that day. He later escaped from jail, quite famously. 2 auxiliaries sent for reinforcements. They were killed at Northumberland Road, the first auxiliaries ever to be killed on duty. At 117 Moorhampton Road, 1 officer was killed, but his civilian landlord Thomas Smith was also mistakenly shot dead, with his 10-year-old son witnessing the tragedy. At the Gresham Hotel, IRA men killed 2 former British officers, now both civilians. Patrick McCormack was mistakenly identified after the gunman went into the wrong room. The other was Leonard Wilde, who may have lied about being an intelligence officer, thinking the men were police officers, inadvertently sealing his own fate. Future Taoiseach, which is the Prime Minister of Ireland, Sean Lemass, took part in the killing of a court-martial officer at 119 Lower Baggot Street. Another court-martial officer was killed elsewhere on Lower Baggot Street. At Earlsford Terrace, the IRA killed an RIC sergeant, although their actual target was someone else. Some hits were botched. The targets weren't home or were wrongly identified. 1 volunteer later called the operation mostly abortive. A total of 15 people died, 9 British Army officers, 1 RIC sergeant, 2 auxiliaries, 2 civilians, and 1 who may have been a civilian or may not, slightly unclear. 5 others were injured. In Michael Collins' words, the targets were spies and informers whose deaths were like ridding the land of dangerous reptiles, although he did later send an apology letter to the mother of one of the civilians killed. But yeah, that was the morning.
How did the British respond to this attack? Do they take their time and consider the evidence and act rationally like they normally do in Ireland historically?
The thing about this, from a purely, like, if you take any morals out of it, and if you just think about it as an act of war in this moment, the British at this point have the moral upper hand. Obviously, inadvertently, civilians have been killed in this operation. Targets who potentially weren't legitimate targets have been killed. At this point, from a military point of view, being completely cold about the situation, they had the upper hand. So, this is what they went and did next, and this is awful, just to warn you in advance.
It's not great. Yeah.
This is the afternoon of the 21st of November now. Dublin were playing Tipperary at Croke Park in a benefit match to raise money for the Republican Prisoners Dependence Fund. About 5,000 people were in attendance, despite reservations people had as the news began to break of the assassinations earlier in the day. Basically, you had a very war-weary population. the First World War had only finished 2 years before, and they were straight into the Irish War of Independence, having had the Easter Rising.
Easter Risings,
Yeah.
1916, yeah.
It was a case of just, you've got to get on with life, so people did, and they went to a football game. The match kicked off half an hour late at 3:15. Unbeknownst to the spectators, 3 armoured cars containing soldiers had arrived outside the stadium from the north, and a much bigger convoy of 18 vehicles had arrived from the south, containing mostly black and tans with some auxiliaries present. So, just to explain what black and tans and auxiliaries are, the black and tans were a British paramilitary force recruited in 1920 to reinforce the overstretched Royal Irish Constabulary during the War of Independence, mainly made up of ex-soldiers from World War I. They were hastily trained, poorly disciplined. Their nickname came from their mismatched uniforms, black police tunics and khaki military trousers. The black and tans quickly became infamous for their violent reprisals, indiscriminate attacks on civilians, and the destruction of property, making them a symbol of British brutality in Ireland. The auxiliaries, or auxiliary division of the RIC, were a more elite unit established in the same year, composed almost entirely of former British Army officers. Better paid, heavily armed, they carried out counter-insurgency operations, raid and intelligence work against the IRA. Their conduct was even more aggressive and coordinated at times than the black and tans, and they were widely feared for their involvement in torture, summary executions and massacres. Like the tans, their actions inflamed public anger and helped turn Irish and international opinion further against British rule. So, these men entered the area with orders to guard exits and search every man, lest there be IRA members present, or better yet, squad members in the stadium. Their intention was allegedly to announce by megaphone that all men leaving would be searched and anyone escaping the ground through other means would be shot. Instead, police simply opened fire without warning as soon as they reached the southwest exit gate. British officials initially claimed they were shot at first by IRA members, but eyewitnesses and autopsies disproved this. Victims were shot in the back while fleeing, including children. 11-year-old William Robinson and 10-year-old Jerome O'Leary were shot and killed, the youngest victims. Autopsies suggest they were facing the pitch at this point, strongly suggesting the shots were fired into the crowd without warning or initial fire from the police, as that would have made them either flee or turn around. Claims made that there were armed IRA scouts outside were false. They were actually ticket sellers. Spectators trying to flee were even fired upon while jumping into the Royal Canal. Testimony confirms they were shot while in the water. No warning was given. 90 seconds of gunfire created panic in a stampede. A machine gun was even used at one point. It wasn't used on the crowd, but it was used to fire above the crowd, and that caused such a stampede the crowd turned upon itself, and I think 2 people amongst the dead were trampled to death by the crowd in the panic, which is unsurprising. The horror was witnessed by international observers and journalists who saw dried blood and abandoned belongings days later. Amongst the dead was Tipperary captain Michael Hogan, for whom a stand at Croke Park is now named the Hogan Stand. So Tom Ryan, a Tipperary player who was beside his team captain when he was fatally shot, said, "The first thing that struck us, those of us with volunteer training, was to lay prone on the ground. A voice shouted out they're firing blanks, but a minute later it was obvious they weren't firing blanks. As the firing continued, both the Dublin and Tipperary players decided to leave the pitch in pairs. 2 players left. Hogan was the 3rd player that got up. As he did, he fell forward. I was about 3 yards off him at the time. As he fell forward and fell to the ground, I saw the blood gushing through his jersey. I knew he was shot and slipped towards him and heard the words Jesus, Mary and Joseph come from his lips. I decided then I had to rush for my life and try and get out." Bloody awful, this.
Yeah, it's not not the finest moment in our history.
Yeah.
Where have you heard all these excuses before?
I was going to say, there's a reason you don't see just Irish flags flying in Ireland a lot of the time. John William Scott was 14. He was fatally shot in the chest and died in a nearby home. Despite overwhelming evidence of civilian deaths, the British authorities tried to spin the events as justified action to the morning's assassinations. This mirrors tactics used after the 1916 Rising and many, many other times by many, many other regimes in history. Historian Cormac Moore notes that the British lost the propaganda war there and then, as the massacre obviously made them appear as perpetrators, as they were, not the victims. The Croke Park massacre deepened public support for the IRA, both domestically and internationally, becoming a turning point in the War of Independence. In Parliament, I think it was the following day, they had a long discussion about the event, commemorating and discussing how terrible it was, the lives of the soldiers and spies killed the day before, when a MP for an Irish party, I think it was the Falls Road MP from Belfast, forgive me for not remembering his name, stood up and asked whether anyone was going to mention the civilians who were killed by the British army and police, that he was booed down by everyone in Parliament, and Parliament got into such a ruckus after I think he was grabbed round the neck and attacked, that the Speaker just ended the day's proceedings at that point. So, yeah, tells you everything you need to know that.
The British really pissed off the Irish, and for a very good reason. We were effectively banned from that stadium for 100 years.
Yeah, and it does go to show exactly why that was such a huge deal in 2005 or shortly thereafter, when England did go and play there. 2006 was it?
7, and we got annihilated for what it's worth. People of Ireland. We got beat 43-13. We actually played there again 2 years later in 2009. Lost 14-13, and the Irish won the Grand Slam.
Nice.
Brian O'Driscoll's Grand Slam. Yeah, I think those were the only 2 games that we played there, but I might be misremembering. But yeah, Croke Park is it's also got Hill 16.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Which is named in memory of the 1916 Easter Risings, basically originally named after the Gallipoli battle where...
Yes, Hill 60.
Yeah, where the Irish soldiers fighting for the British Army in World War One were killed. But then they changed it to Hill 16, named after the Risings.
Yeah, so Croke Park essentially became a place of martyrdom. The GAA, who were largely apolitical during this moment, became a pretty symbolic as a sort of site of national sacrifice. And yeah, it did reshape the GAA's role as a nationalist in the nationalist memory somewhat, but ultimately it just exposed the lies and bullshit at the heart of the British rule in Ireland more than anything. Galvanised public anger and gave powerful momentum to the cause of Irish independence, which obviously proved largely successful.
Yeah, and I mean, the history of Ireland is very complicated from there.
Yes.
And I don't mean complicated in the sort of flippant sense that people often like to talk about conflicts in other countries. I actually mean it is actually quite complicated. After the War of Independence, so there was then a civil war between treaty and pro-treaty people. The IRA that we're talking about is not the IRA you know from the Troubles. That's the Provisional IRA, and there are various other factions. It all leads to resolution of the Good Friday Agreement. Yes.
That's a very, very bottled history, that.
Yeah, it is, yeah, but we're not here to recite
the
history of the Troubles. We're here to talk about...
As fascinating as it is.
Yeah, Gaelic football. I mean, I don't know how much more you want to talk about the history, but I can, if you want...
No, I think that's it, really.
Yeah,
I've got some happier stuff.
Well, before we go on that, then I was just going to say that the All Ireland Senior Football Championship trophy is called the Sam, or Sam. It's named after a chap called Sam Maguire. And if you just want a further illustration of the sorts of things and how entrenched this all is in Irish culture, he was a pretty influential figure in GAA. He's a former footballer. He actually captained the London side in 1901, 1904 in the All Ireland finals. Anyhow, in 1907, he went into administration in London GAA, became chairman of the London County Board and a regular delegate at the annual Congress, and he was also a trustee at Croke Park. He was closely affiliated to Michael Collins.
Yes.
And I think had some role in recruiting him or something like that, and for many years was basically Collins' right-hand man. And I know you've already spoken about Michael Collins a little bit, but I know Irish people will know this, but for anybody else who actually is interested in being slightly educated on this, he's basically one of the leading figures in the early 20th century struggle for Irish independence. He fought in the Easter Risings. He basically rose up through the ranks of the Irish Volunteers and Sinn Féin. Again, slightly different iteration of Sinn Féin as to you and I know now. He helped set up the first Dáil, which would go on to become the Dáil Éireann, which is the Irish Parliament. And he was also Director of Intelligence in the IRA during the Irish War of Independence, and he fought against the British in the terms that you were just talking about. He was the government minister of finance in the self-declared Irish Republic, and he was also part of the delegation who signed the Anglo-Irish Treaty in 1921, which created the Irish Free State. He then held loads of other positions in governance and was a commander-in-chief in the National Army until his death, when he was killed in the Irish Civil War, which was being fought by pro- and anti-treaty forces. He was killed by anti-treaty forces, and trying to explain that is a bit difficult, but the history is that there were sections
it's worth looking into.
Yeah, there were sections of Ireland who thought that any kind of a deal with the British, which didn't result in a unified Ireland, completely independent Ireland, in terms of the entire island of Ireland, was a betrayal. That is the ideology that led to the Provisional IRA and so on and so forth. Whereas Michael Collins was a guy who saw the treaty as freedom for freedom's sake, like freedom in order to get freedom, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, so he and the guy who the cup is named after were like tight. And so just another way of emphasizing the relationship between, this sport, GAA, the trophy, Irish history, Irish culture, Irish nationalism, this, that, and the other. Sam Maguire actually died of tuberculosis in 1927, which is quite sad.
Yeah.
And he took a job as in the Irish civil service as it then became in the Irish Free State, and clashed a little bit over his political ideology, was sacked, I think, or forced to leave in some capacity. Basically sort of died penniless, which is really sad. And a cup was bought in his name, which is made out of silver.
Fair enough.
And it only cost £300 in 1928, which doesn't sound much, but actually works out at like 13 grand, roughly. So someone was doing all right.
More than the FA Cup cost.
Yeah, I was going to say, he had some friends in high places, which I think we've emphasised here. But yeah, that trophy had been the trophy ever since its purchase in 1928, but until 1988, when it was retired. It's now permanently on display in the GAA Museum at Croke Park, and there is a replica in use. I think it got damaged because it's made out of silver, and you know how we used to do, and still occasionally do, little tangents where we explain why that's a thing. So silver is a soft metal, and it's prone to sustaining dents, and I think that's why it got retired.
Lucky metallurgists out there.
But yeah, anyway, we've gone on here about where it's all come from, but I think that's important if you don't know anything about the sport.
Oh, context is everything. Well, this is what this whole bloody podcast is about. It's about context. It's this is why you should watch this sport, because here's the history.
It is interesting.
The one thing I will say, before we move on from the proper history, the one thing I'll say about Michael Collins that I do find amazing, and it surprises me every time I see it, that Michael Collins was 31 when he died, and that is a hell of a lot to fit into 31 years. That's that list you just came up with.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other people's lives, mate. Particularly people that were born between sort of 1880 and 1950. They all seem to have lived crazy lives, because that whole section of history.
I mean, wars and times of crisis tend to accelerate lives.
Yeah.
A lot of living done, yeah.
So we've got Gaelic football, we've got the GAA, we've got how it's all set up, and we've tried to do justice to how it's a major part of of Irish communities. Should we try and talk about the actual All-Ireland Senior Football Championship?
Yeah, we should, because I love it. I think this is excellent, because where we talk about the FA Cup and why we love the FA Cup, that even the smallest of the small teams have the opportunity to win it. It is slightly convoluted, the way the All-Ireland Cup works.
This is one of the most convoluted systems I've ever read in my life.
Oh, it tickles me in all the right places, though. I love it.
It's because you're a geek for this kind of stuff. It is good. Can I start by giving some people some Billy Basic reference to try and get their heads going?
Yes.
It is essentially, as in the All-Ireland, is essentially the Champions League of Gaelic football.
That's fair, I think.
And there are ways in which you can qualify for it. But treat the All-Ireland Championship as the Champions League.
Yeah, I think the best place to start is explaining that Ireland has 4 provinces.
Yes.
Those provinces, between them, have 32 counties, of which 26 are currently in the Republic of Ireland and 6, obviously, are currently in the United Kingdom. The All-Ireland Championship is contested between, theoretically, all the counties. However, one county doesn't take part at the moment. That is Kilkenny. And the reason Kilkenny doesn't take part is because they bloody love hurling. And they simply just don't have enough players playing Gaelic football. They are I think they are the singular most successful, I want to say 32, 34 All-Ireland titles won at hurling, because a similar competition obviously exists in hurling as well. But they just don't play Gaelic football. But there is still 32 teams that take part in the Irish Championship. That's because a team from London takes part in it as well.
Yes. And New York.
Yeah. And there is a team as well from New York which don't take part in the Irish National Football League, which is called the NFL, just to be confusing. I did actually look who called themselves the NFL first, and it was the American NFL by about 3 years, but they obviously long enough ago that they've lost a chance to sue, because I imagine they would otherwise. So there is a National Football League in Ireland, and that is played the start of the year.
Yeah, 4 divisions.
January through to March kind of time. In 4 divisions, yeah.
Relegation promotion, nice and easy.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Like straight up 8, 8, 8, 8, 4 divisions of 8, and that doesn't include the New York team, but does include the London team, and obviously doesn't include Kilkenny at the moment.
Yeah.
Then you have county cups, essentially.
Provincial cups.
Provincial cups, I do apologise.
Yeah.
Where the teams in each of the 4 provinces play for their own cup. And then you have the All-Ireland after that from May time. So that is like March through to May, the provincial cups. And then from May onwards, it's the All-Ireland Cup. It's just, I love it. I love it.
Mate, you've forgotten something. You also have the Europa League.
Yes, you do.
Have the Taltien Cup, and which is for the teams that don't qualify for the All-Ireland.
It's great.
Compete in the Taltien Cup. And then if you win it, you get into the All-Ireland next year.
Just like the Europa League.
Should we explain this? Okay, right. Yeah, I think you've done a pretty good job there. But the provinces aren't the same size.
No.
So there are different ways in which you can qualify for this tournament. The first one is the Connacht Senior Football Championships, North West Ireland, smallest province, 7 counties.
5 counties, but also has New York and London.
Yes,
in it.
Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
That's correct. London playing out of South Ruislip and New York playing out of the Bronx. So Galway, Leitrim, Mayo, Roscommon and Sligo, plus London and New York, as you've just said. They play for the JJ Nesta Cup. Galway are the most successful county from the Connacht province, and they beat Mayo this year. But that means that Galway and Mayo qualify for the All-Ireland through Connacht's Senior Football Championship.
Because they got to the final.
Because they got to the final. It's the top 2. So the 2 finalists get in. So winning it is just for pride, really. Then you have Leinster, South East Ireland, most counties, highest population. 11 teams currently participate, including Carlow, Dublin, who are the most successful, Kildare, Louth, Meath, Wexford, Wicklow, who are the only team never to have won the Leinster Senior Football Championship. Used to have Kilkenny, as you said, but they don't anymore. And they play for the Delaney Cup. And the Delaney brothers were just famous Gaelic footballers from a family in Portalaus. I think I'm mispronouncing that. Who just played at various senior levels of Gaelic football.
Nice.
This year, Louth beat Meath. So they both make the All-Ireland.
Because they both reached the final.
Because they both reached the final. So now you've got Galway, Mayo, Louth, Meath. Then you've got Munster Senior Football Championship.
I love how you've committed to this.
I committed, mate. I think it's important, like, to see how it all plays out. If you're going to really get into grips with this sport, then you've got to dive in.
You're doing the simple part now. It gets more complicated.
It does get more complicated. Southwest Ireland, the least number of counties, but also some of the most successful province. One of the most successful provinces. I think, in fact, the most successful province. 6 teams competing: Clare, Cork, Kerry, Limerick, Tipperary, and Waterford. I think Kerry and Cork are historically the best. All 6 teams have got at least 1 title. They play for the Munster Cup, keeping it pretty simple. They've spoken about changing the name of that one a few times. They've decided not to. This year, Kerry beat Clare. So Kerry, Clare, Louth, Meath, Galway, Mayo in the All-Ireland. Then you've got the Ulster Senior Football Championships, Northern Ireland and North West Ireland, counties of... So the Northwest Irish counties of Cavan and Donegal, and then all of the counties in Northern Ireland. So 9 teams: Antrim, Armagh, Cavan, Derry, Donegal, Down, Fermanagh, who have also never won, Monaghan, Tyrone. They play for the Anglo-Celt Cup. You can probably guess why it's called the Anglo-Celt Cup, given its geographical location.
Yeah.
And this year, Donegal beat Armagh. So there's your 8 qualifiers for the All-Ireland through the provincial tournaments. That's how that works.
But what that means is that every single county in Ireland, plus New York, plus London, less Kilkenny because they're not in it, but everyone who competes has a chance to then reach the All-Ireland tournament in any given season. So,
yes,
Fairy Tale runs a Division 4 team getting all the way is possible.
It is possible.
In theory, which we love.
It doesn't matter what your league position is exactly. You always have a route to the All-Ireland. Right. Then you've got the Taltien Cup, which is made up to 17 teams, and they're drawn from the bottom 16 rankings of last season's National Football League plus New York. And so we were saying about the divisions. basically Divisions 1 to 4. If you finish in Division 3 and Division 4, essentially, then you go into the Tailtean Cup.
But one little asterisk on that is the Division 3 top two, the two teams get promoted from Division 3, get precedence over the two teams that get relegated from Division 2.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because technically speaking, they are lower ranked.
Yes.
But for their promotion.
Yes.
That is 4 groups of 4, and then you would think it's just top 2. But no, fuck that shit. Let's make it even more complicated. You just play your group, and then second place third, very European Championships football this.
Yeah.
In what they call the prelim quarters. And then the winner advances to the quarterfinals, and then you just have a regulation quarter semi-final.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, again, it keeps it open and gives everyone an opportunity to qualify. When you win it, you go into the following year's All-Irelands. You don't qualify that year. You go into the next year. So the 2024 winners who qualified for this year's tournament are down. And next year, Kildare qualify because they won the Tailtean Cup this year. No one defends the Tailtean Cup. You can't.
Why would you want to?
Yeah. And it's a new thing. That's only been going for like 4 or 5 years. Oh, right. So that leaves you with 9 teams in, but we've got to get another 7. So what you do is you get the best non-qualified National Football League teams in. And so depending on where you finished in the league, you will end up in the tournament. And this year, the highest ranked teams were Dublin, who are in Division 1, Monaghan Division 2, Roscommon Division 2, Tyrone Division 1, Cavan Division 2, Cork Division 2, and Derry Division 1. I think Down were Division 3 runners-up when they won the Cup.
Yes, they were.
And Clare, who were runners-up in their provincial tournament, the Munster tournament, they are a Division 3 side, but everybody else is a Division 1 or Division 2 team in this year's tournament.
Yeah, basically anyone who didn't get relegated from Division 2 and all the Division 1 teams from this season qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teams that you mentioned who got in through other means.
Yes. And what all that means...
Those 2 teams.
Actually, that isn't even it, is it? What that all means is you then have 16 teams who play in 4 groups of 4 in exactly the same way as the Tailtean Cup. So second place third in the prelim quarters, semi-final. And when you finally get to the final, which is what we're talking about, which is coming up this weekend, you end up with Donegal, who are the Ulster champions, and 4th in Division 1, playing Kerry, who are the Munster and National Football League champions.
I think I can speak for everyone when I say you've earned yourself a Guinness there. Well done, mate.
Hopefully it makes sense, but the point is we got Donegal versus Kerry. That's what it all comes down to.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. And if you want to know what that means, Kerry are the best. They've got the most wins, 38.
Yes.
Donegal have won before, but they are nowhere near as successful as Kerry. It's Kerry 38, Dublin 31, Galway 9, Cork 7, Meath 7. So I imagine Kerry go into this as hot favourites, given they are their provincial and the Division 1 champs and have won the most trophies coming up against Donegal.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm supporting Donegal then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Got to back the underdog.
When in doubt.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, like this is a sport that is, I mean, like, there have been a lot of winners, but there also have been there are still quite a few counties that haven't won or made a finals previously. So this is an era's sport where there can be like domination. I'm not quite sure why that is, given it's amateur. Maybe it's just sort of a community thing, and
just a good bunch of players, and it's very difficult to other teams to strengthen other than just through not luck. Obviously good coaching and good developing young players is a thing, but ultimately if you have a few dry years where people in your county aren't born with talent, then you're going to be in a negative position. I think you basically have to play for the county you're born in, or I think you can move to a county and live there for a certain amount of time and then play for them on residency, but it is restricted. Like if you try and do that in the middle of your career, there's limitations on it. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think it's just that really. It's not like you can go out and think, I'm going to splash 30 million on a new striker.
No, yeah, you can't turn around your fortunes over the course of a summer, can you?
There's no quick fix.
No. I mean, that probably explains why Dublin recently won 6 in a row. between 2015 and 2020, which is the most anyone's ever won in a row, to be fair.
They will have the biggest catchment of players. Simple as that.
Well, for sure. Highest population as well. It's the biggest pool of people to draw on, I imagine.
Yep. And the best way to make a sport better in any particular area is to get a lot of people playing it. And the easiest way to get a lot of people playing it is just to have a lot of people there in the first place.
Yeah, well, so it's a big advantage, which probably explains why they're the second most successful team behind Kerry. There have actually been quite a few teams that have won the quadruple and the treble, multiple doubles, this, that and the other. But there are 5 counties. Is it Laos? Is that how you pronounce that? Laois? If you're from Laos or Laos, forgive me, it's probably pronounced completely different to that as well. Antrim, Waterford, Clare and Monaghan have all made finals but never won.
Yeah.
And there have been 8 counties that have never been represented in the All-Ireland final, which is Carlow, Fermanagh, Leitrim, Sligo, Westmeath, Wicklow, Longford, and New York. London have made 5 finals and lost all of them, but all 5 they were given a bye, so doesn't really count, does it?
Okay, right. I know New York used to play every year. I'm not sure when this started and when this ended, but certainly was happening in the 50s. New York used to play the champion in like an end-of-season game.
Okay.
In New York. They used to go over and play at the Polo Grounds.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm going to tee you up because I know there's one thing you want to talk about.
Oh, yes.
The unluckiest team in the All-Ireland is probably Mayo.
I would say.
They've been to 18 finals and lost 15 of them, and they haven't won since 1951. And why is that, Jack?
So, you've teed me up beautifully because the first line here is, the year is 1951, which I'm starting to realise is how I like to start stories.
Yeah.
So Mayo have just won the All-Ireland for the second year in a row. They're top of the world. They're the undisputed best team around. They later go to New York and they win there as well to prove they're world champions as well. So to celebrate, they hop on an open-top lorry and they head home, taking in applause as they go. They're nearly home. They pass a moment in time that demands their respect and reverence. An ongoing funeral, mourners dressed in black, the deeply rooted Irish traditions of the 1950s demanding they slow to stop and pay their respects. Instead, lost in celebrations, the laughter continues, the party goes on, and an act of pure sacrilege is committed. Eyes filled with fury and heart pounding, the priest fixes his fire-filled eyes upon them and calls damnation down on them, saying that for as long as each one of them lives, Mayo would never repeat their success. They would never win the All-Ireland within their lifetime. So that's the story. Or at least the way it's been told in pubs.
I think it's
column inches since.
I was going to say, I think most people in Ireland think it's bullshit, but it's a fun story.
Don't you ruin my story before it's even started, mate. Come on.
No, I love it.
Because here's the thing, Ben. Here's the thing. From 1951, when they were the best in the land, they didn't appear in an All-Ireland until 1989, when they lost to Cork by 3 points. Unlucky, yes. Hardly the signs of a curse. But they were back in 1996. They were a point up with no time left against Meath when Colm Coyle launched a speculative punt forward. With the sun blazing, no one went for the catch, and the ball bounced despairingly over the crossbar for a freak point to level the game, sending the game to a replay. The replay being one of the most infamous games in GAA history, the biggest brawl in final history with every player on the pitch bar Mayo fullback Kevin Cahill and keeper John Madden, no relation, in a 28-man brawl. Referee Pat McKennedy chose to send off a player from each side, Mayo's McHale and Meath's McDermott, but after his umpire and linesman told him that Colm Coyle deserved to go, he chose not to send off McDermott, but to send off only McHale and Coyle. McHale was Mayo's best player. Meath went on to win by a single point. So one player from each side went when it should have been 2-1. It's starting to feel a little bit like bad luck at this point. So they lost the final again in 1997 to Kerry by 3 points, then lost again in 2004 to Kerry and 2006 to Kerry. Again, yeah, you can chalk that up to Kerry just being really good, as we've discussed before. But Ben, the decade from 2012 to 2021 that really sealed it for the curse. With the remaining members of the 1951 team in their twilight years, it went into overdrive. Mayo reached 6 finals in that time and won none of them. So just to put this into context, if you assume a final is pretty close to being 50-50 most of the time, like what odds do you think you would get on flipping 11 tails in a row? Because I can tell you.
Well, it's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, isn't it?
Yeah. It's 1 in 2048. So dumb luck suggests they should have won one by now, simply put. But maybe, though, that's the problem. Maybe it becomes a self-fulfilling curse hanging over the players and affecting their game until finally one day they overcome it. Maybe next time the Easter final will be theirs to win. It should be, curse or not, as the last surviving member of the team, Paddy Prendergast, passed away in 2021.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, non-playing substitute and former GAA president Mick Loftus, sadly following in 2023. I guess we will find out one day because they ain't in it this year.
No,
but
isn't there one game? Isn't there one of the games where they scored 2 own goals? Which in Gaelic,
I forgot about that.
Gaelic football is like never happens.
It's the thing, isn't it? It's like everything is in hindsight. Everything when you look back on it is like, that sure looks like a curse. Maybe. I mean, if you look at all the sports in the world and all these curses that go around, like, enough sport is played throughout the world, you're going to end up with a mad situation like this where someone loses 11 finals on the trot. And obviously, once you get to 5 or 6 finals, you've got that added thing as it starts getting in their head. It starts affecting them mentally and the rest, and maybe affects the crowd, maybe affects the referee's decisions in certain cases. Maybe they don't want to get in the way of destiny, who knows? But yeah, it is big. I mean, 11 in a row. That is statistically very improbable.
Yeah, that is mad. But who doesn't love a curse? And we're itching to go on baseball, and that's full of them.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for baseball.
Definitely going to delve into more theories like that in the future. But yeah, Mayo, possibly the unluckiest Gaelic football team in the world.
Unluckiest sports team in the world.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Actually, why are we confining it to Gaelic football? They've got, I think, like the 8th or 9th biggest stadium as well.
Oh, cool.
In Castlebar, McHale Park, capacity 25,300.
Well, we'll have to make sure we go on our trip around Ireland, which we're definitely going to do now.
Yeah.
Well, next season, obviously.
Well, for sure, because it's obviously all about to come to a conclusion. But no, it's a really cool sport. Is there anything else? Any other anecdotes? Anything else you wanted to chew the fat over with these guys?
There's actually not really. I think I genuinely, I'm not joking around about this. I think we should go. I think it's an affordable sport, and if you want to do a Sporting Almanac trip away, it's a great place to start. It's great sport. It's a sport which is close to our heart because of its amateur traditions and the way I think it gets sport right. And it's obviously close. It's just over the other side of the Irish Sea. And yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah, I'm keen.
Don't know about you.
No, I'm keen as well. Like in fact, I'm a bit disappointed that we've got to the age that we have without having been to a game.
Well, that's on us.
But we will remedy it. So, I mean, if we've piqued your interest in a new sport, obviously, if you're Irish, it's not new, and you're probably just thinking, you pair of fools.
What the hell have you been talking about for the past hour? Yeah.
Yeah. But if we've managed to convince you that we know something about something, even if it's bluster, then.
That's what the English are good at.
Yeah, well, that's true, actually. We're full of shit, and we might as well embrace it. So, yeah, 82,300 people are going to be watching it at Croke Park this Sunday. You can actually watch it in the UK if you want to watch it. It is going to be on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer. There will be some coverage on BBC Sports website, but I don't think it will be streaming. But BBC 2 Northern Ireland will be showing it. I mean, if you're in Ireland, you don't need me to tell you that it's on. I think it's on RTE.
Yeah, it will be.
Probably on it. It's probably on everything.
I think you can get BBC Northern Ireland just if you scroll low enough down your channels on most Freeview sets as well, if you didn't want to have to go use the internet.
That's a very good tip.
Just to point that out.
Yeah. And if you're American...
Obviously, iPlayer is available.
I've got no idea where you can watch it if you're in America.
You will definitely be able to watch it in New York.
Yes.
I guarantee that.
Yeah.
It is huge. And probably
in Boston.
I imagine in Boston as well, yeah. In the Northeast generally.
Chicago.
But I imagine probably all over.
Chicago pretend to be Irish as well, don't they?
You're trying to get yourself hurt.
Anyhow, there we are. Gaelic football in a nutshell. The All Ireland coming your way. Enjoy it. Tune in and enjoy it. Where are we going next?
Well, for the first time ever, we haven't actually decided yet. We're either going to go back to the Lions if the series is poised, although based on the first test, might be unlikely, or we're going to do a couple of weeks of the Premier League, or possibly a couple of weeks of football, maybe the EFL and then Premier League. We'll decide.
Yeah, so we're going to the Lions, third test, if it's a decider, but if it's not, we're probably going to do the Premier League.
Unless we think of anything better. Now's a great chance. Have you got any suggestions for that week?
Yeah.
So next weekend, chuck it our way.
Nice.
We're open to ideas. And we're definitely open to new sports.
Sound.
Yeah? Sound as a pound.
All right. Well, we'll get on to Samuel and we'll get our tickets booked for next year.
That's my brother, by the way, for the many people who don't know my brother, who might be listening.
And who will inevitably get on to talk to us about football and Leeds and stuff. And he's a big sports fan, as much as we are.
Yes. Yeah, and Sam will be listening to this. So, Sam, we're going to Ireland next year. There you go.
Yeah. And we love you, Sam.
Oh, yeah, obviously. That too. He's my brother. I should be the one saying that.
I know, but I impose myself on your family all the time, so why stop on a podcast?
I'm pretty sure you're the second son they never had. I'm not going to say which of us two it would replace, but...
Oh, you, for sure.
Yeah, definitely me, yeah.
Right, that got weird.
It did, yeah. Not as weird as Sue Barker, but getting close.
Yeah. Well, Sue, don't bring Sue up.
Okay, we should go.
We should. All right, mate. See you in a bit.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening again to the Sporting Almanac podcast. To anyone not acquainted, we hope we helped you learn a little something about a mostly new sport and some Irish history too. And to those already in the know, we hope we did both at least a little justice. A like, subscribe, rate or comment if you enjoyed would be great, but please do tell your friends and family first and foremost. Our theme tune is Oh Yeah by Harmony Productions. The intro melody was Shivek Shavor by Slauncher from the Free Music Archive. You can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at the Sporting Almanac or drop us an email at sportingalmanacpodcast@gmail.com. Next up, it's probably the first of a double header of football. Until then, stay curious, as this episode shows more than ever, sport is nothing without the history that makes it. Goodbye.